thank you for that. It's a pleasure to be here. I will give you a brief intro on the speakers, and then they will introduce themselves. We'll run over a few topics where each of them, being stakeholders in this very rapidly developing industry, they will each share a bit of their focus of their companies and the unique insights they can provide. And then we'll talk a bit more about how a betting product should look like in esports and what audiences want, and try to share a few learnings with you here today. Okay, so I'm here with Nasim from DreamHack, Fabian from Pixelbet, Suraj from BlinkPool, and Vadim from Luckbox. I will all give you a brief moment to introduce yourselves and your role and the company you're representing.
Okay, so shall I start?
Go ahead, Vadim.
Okay, so my name is Vadim. I'm CMO in Luckbox. Luckbox is a new esports betting platform. We launch our product in Q1 next year, and our main idea is that we want to bring best practices of traditional gambling industry and tailor them to quite distinctive esports fans' needs. We, as the management and leadership team, we have 100 plus years of experience on the senior level positions in traditional gambling, and we all share passion for esports. That's where pretty much an idea came from. So that's me. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Suraj. I'm the founder and CEO of BlinkPool. BlinkPool is a real money P2P betting platform that gamifies the viewing experience for esports fans by asking quickfire betting markets directly relevant to what's going on in the game at that specific moment in time. Kind of think Twitch plus betting. We combine a kind of wide variety of strategies that were used in free-to-play games, as well as traditional betting practices, to offer effectively a completely integrated and gamified viewing and betting experience. In terms of my role at the business, obviously having founded it, set out with the vision to create the go-to betting product for the fans, and that is everything from creating and pricing new betting markets through to having a strong direction on where the product should go.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Fabian. I'm the CMO and one of the founders for Pixelbet. We are esports betting startup. We are originally based in Malta with Swedish DNA. We recently joined Leo Vegas and were acquired by the Leo Vegas group. And our focus is to build a product, sort of a product-first vision. We believe that a lot of the other products in the esports betting offering in industry tends to be built on top of white labels. So we believe there is an opportunity for us to offer something a bit more customized, a bit more dedicated to pure esports, including both live and pre-match betting. My role there is CMO. And yeah, I hope I can have a nice chat on this panel with all these good people.
Yeah, and I'm Nasim. I'm brand partnership manager at DreamHack. DreamHack is the world's largest digital festival and one of the largest esports tournament organizers. We do more than 11 events throughout 7 countries around the globe, mainly Europe and NA, but also expanding into Asia next year. So we provide with a lot of content towards not only the esport audience, but also the gaming society.
Okay, thank you guys for your intros. To kick this off, before we talk a bit about the product itself or the different platforms, we're in esports, and we obviously are an ecosystem made out of quite a diverse selection of different game titles. So especially in the recent years, we've seen the ecosystem shaping up with new genres even being introduced, which now capture a lot of traction and a big share of the audience. And the question I would have for you is, should basically the offering that you have as part of your product portfolio, should this mirror the trends in popularity of game titles or even game genres, especially alluding to Battle Royale here and Fortnite and these kind of things? Or are you still pretty much saying it's the status quo, is we got the 3 big games and they really dictate the biggest share of the betting activity? Maybe Suraj, if you want to lead on this.
I take a very strong view that The betting industry is fundamentally a service provider to fans, in which case I think that the betting industry should follow viewership. I think some people take a view that it drives engagement. Yeah, sure, it's going to kind of get people who are invested in a title more invested in the title, but I don't think it's ever. I think you fundamentally need to see where is the audience, where are the eyeballs, what do people like to watch, and therefore what will they like to bet on. I do think certain titles are maybe more betting friendly than others in terms of what delivers a good betting experience, but that's a separate question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have crystal ball, obviously, but I can kind of give you our line of thinking on that. Like, first of all, I agree with Suraj that, I mean, as a betting product, you need to be where eyeballs are, really. And at the moment, of course, these are big three, and you need to provide deepest and widest offering on these big three if you want to compete. But when you look at where industry or esports viewership will go, like, there are a number of facts that we need to take into consideration. First one, I mean, according to Newzoo, right now around 40% of people who are watching Big Three, they're not playing these games. They have played it before, but they're not playing it now, which means that there is like some sort of differentiation between people who play and people who watch, which makes me think that it's very good, but it's not good enough to become very popular game in order to become very popular esport. Because there is so many benefits of like scale, infrastructure, partnership, broadcasting, knowing how to do things, which makes the cost of entry for rivals of these big three like very high. It doesn't mean that they can do so, but it just becomes much more expensive. And by just having a really great game is just not enough. So that's but who knows? Maybe like there is a consensus in the industry that Battle Royale should overcome Dota sooner or later. We will see. But it will be harder to do than to say.
I mean, from my end, for Pixelbet, we try to draw the line between what drives eyeballs and what drives betting. We already see some different sort of behavior. While, you know, Fortnite is fantastic to drive eyeballs and interest, there's only still early stages. There hasn't been a strong commitment from the game makers. Well, there's been a strong commitment and promises, but it hasn't been delivered yet in terms of building an infrastructure that can take the bets, that can bring trusted bets opportunity for operators like us, and we can then serve to our customers. One of the challenge that I think is going to be hard for the newcomers to overcome will be to replicate what company you know, behind the leading title have done. You know, Riot Games, for example, is for me, you know, a cross between ESPN and the NBA, which is not only, you know, providing the sport, it's also building the entire infrastructure around broadcasting, around offering events, and for us that means, you know, we feel safer that this is sort of, you know, is a full circle approach that allows us to offer the best betting experience. However, I'd like to believe there is some great little innovation in terms of the titles. Personally, I can definitely relate your comment because I play Rainbow Six, and, you know, I follow the other big three, but, you know, I do not play the big three. So I'm sure people are looking for more. But finally, from a pure sort of numbers background, most of our revenue is today driven not only by the big three, but a lot by games like CSGO, which tends to drive a very sort of instant behavior, and we feel like Dota and maybe LOL are a little bit different and drive a slightly different betting behavior.
So that's a very interesting point you alluded to there, and maybe to follow up on this, while there's one idea that you can really follow the trends and you can try to mirror the activity that you see on the player base, would you say that, yeah, you could offer more games, but ultimately the ones commercially worthwhile will be the ones that are more established, where you have your core audience who's already introduced to betting, where you don't have to do where there's no big educational leap to be fulfilled before you can activate it?
From our end, yes, definitely. We're more than happy to open the door to a game like Fortnite, but I think there is an elephant in the room that, you know, we have no problem discussing, is that the audience of Fortnite is young. So, you know, it drives another set of challenges with regards to how we monetize from the betting standpoint customers, you know, and we at Pixelbet are all from an iGaming background, so we believe in, you know, regulated real money gaming with all the security for young people. So I think game like Fortnite will have their own challenges when they come to to offering opportunities and try to compete against like CS:GO, for example. They will have to solve some issue there.
Okay. Staying a bit with trends, but moving to a different vertical in a way. Talking about the platforms, like, can you maybe briefly share for the audience in PC versus mobile, where do you think the trend is? One thing that probably many in the room heard before is like with esports, you have an audience where the second screen experience is literally a second screen. So these are things that could be utilized for a betting experience that is presented alongside a broadcast or directly integrated. Do you have any learnings to share where the preferences with your users or on your strategy? And you don't have to answer on all the points, just the ones where you think there's something you really would like to share.
From mobile, we are primarily a mobile esports betting company. We believe that it's all about a few factors, speed, easy to understand. We believe that there is an opportunity to offer sort of the full feature. So if you compare that to a sportsbook offering, you will have the full feature sportsbook on desktop, and you will have a cut-down version on mobile. But we believe that the best companion experience to watching on a big screen with your friends is a mobile experience. And what we're looking at now is not only that, but how we can sort of extract the betting layer and inject it where potentially the conversation is. So it's not only about device, but it's also about where is the discussion happening? Is it in Slack? Is it in Discord? And we're just asking the question. We don't have all the answer, but what is the expected behavior from the customers? Are we expecting them to leave the conversation and go to another device or another platform to basically engage with us for betting, or should we actually be where the conversation is? So I think this question around device and experiences is the answer for us is primarily mobile at the moment.
Maybe for a point to loop in Nasim here, really, DreamHack has just recently launched a great app, which they're utilizing for many different use cases, one of them being it's your ticket to the event. Which I think is great, and they're really embracing this to improve the experiences of the people in the stadium. And DreamHack being such a stakeholder who really have like multiple years of running top tier events and fan experiences, is this maybe an area where you think there will be a room for innovation?
Yeah, the mobile is an important tool, not only for us, but also for our visitors and our viewers out there, and is something that we definitely are going to take a stronger focus on for the future, because that gives us the opportunity to actually communicate with the viewers and the audience in real time, So I think comparing to the betting providers or the bookmakers, I think for the future or even now, that would be a must.
Do you ever think there might be an integration where you use the app not only for informative purposes or also brand placement, but actually integrating betting into it?
Definitely. We are looking into that also at the moment. And where it is possible, we will implement not just only betting partners, but also commercial partners.
Yeah, for us, we're obviously building a mobile-first product because it would be stupid not to. But compared to traditional T-sports, how we call it, T-sports, right? We don't think that desktop is utterly, entirely dead when it comes to esports, simply because the viewing habits are slightly different, and still, there are many people watching esports, watching feed streams on desktop. And we believe that it would be a big mistake to completely forget and abandon desktop, so we plan to bring a good product on desktop as well, because if there is an audience for whom it still makes sense to give a desktop product, is exactly esports audience.
Definitely.
That's,
I have a very different view. I think, so founding a business, if there's one thing I'm very used to, it's being wrong. If there's one thing I really enjoy, is being right. And when we initially built the product, we actually built it's a website. We went desktop first. And our investors were basically calling me ridiculous. And I told them, well, look, the channels that we expect to hit our audience, we initially put up a really simple kind of landing page, and we just were seeing how people identified, how they found us, and we were finding most of our users came to us via desktop in the first instance. And so we put a vast majority of our resources into getting our desktop website to a good kind of point. Now, that said, you know, they are watching a game and having bets thrown at them at the same time, and there's, you know, a certain amount of real estate that the customer needs to have to enjoy our product. And we put a ton of resource into getting the website up to where it needs, the desktop version to be where we wanted it. However, and this is where I was wrong, after we did get a mobile-friendly version of the site there, what we saw was the behavior where people would find us on desktop, then watch the stream through, I mean, sometimes it could be on their TV, they could be casting it on their, through their phone, whatever, and then were betting kind of through the phone. So it didn't necessarily help us with acquisition, but on the retention and volume side, we were, like, that's where we saw a lot of engagement happening. So we actually took a kind of desktop first for the discovery part, the tutorial, etc. But the mobile definitely had a big impact on volumes.
That's a really interesting learning from your journey in creating the products.
I just wanted to mention something with regards to the broadcast, with regards to the device. I mean, we feel like we are not in full control when it comes to where the customer are gonna enjoy viewing esports. I feel like there's gonna be some huge changes, and I completely relate to your comment that desktop is far from dead. Personally, at home, I have a desktop connected to a huge TV. So what is really that? Is that a TV? Living room experience? Is that a desktop experience? Is that an hybrid? I feel like Amazon, you know, being a broadcaster, and company like Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook now trying to own some esports rights as well are going to definitely, you know, try to come up with new experiences. And I think these experiences might actually be desktop first, some of them.
Okay, so to go a little deeper on the trends after we went through games and platforms and consumption, where's the action? Is it in play? Is it pre-match? Can you share a bit from as much as you can where you think the potential lies? Right. I mean,
I'm sure
you guys are operating, so
I don't have a product yet, so yeah.
we go for the one to one business.
I think it's. So our numbers, you know, 95%, if not more, of our volume comes through in-play. However, you know, we have a product that is fundamentally geared to the viewing experience. We do have kind of your standard pre-match bets, along with some kind of exotic, differentiated kind of pre-game, pre-tournament betting markets, but a vast majority of our product can only be enjoyed in play. That said, I think in the future, like when the betting market is completely mature, I think esports will look the same as traditional sports on a macro level, and in play kills the game.
I mean, from our end at Pixelbet, we feel, I mean, you were talking about failure, we feel like we're still sort of failing because we advertise ourselves as really being live-driven, and we sort of hit a roadblock or a wall with regards to what the industry can provide in terms of availability of live markets. So, you know, you come to a site, you know, you're excited about map one, so let's say tonight, you know, you want to bet on London, face it, you go there, you go to our site, you bet, and you're very excited, you maybe get a few friends, you know, involved, and you bet on map one, and then within 1 or 2 minutes, map one will close. And that's really sad sometimes. So we try to work with the best provider and identify what would be the best go-to-market route for us to sort of try to solve this problem. But definitely I have a feeling that both data visualization and odds feed will need to definitely improve on the live side, and we're just ready to turn that into recommendation and live betting opportunities for our punters.
Yeah, it sounds like the suppliers need to do a better job than...
Definitely, I agree with the statement.
Okay, so before we get into the activations and maybe sponsorship part, I know Nasim is waiting for this one. Last question on like really the user experience you want to provide and the nuances matter for the audience. Crypto is a lot of buzz. I know Luckbox will certainly have some comments on it. A question I'm interested in, like, because we all read the white papers and we also the big pictures around how this is unlocking the big liquidity, and like, do you feel that the esports customer really cares about it as like it's important for them to be able to use crypto, or is the appeal of crypto more coming from they think it's interesting to invest in it. I think it's interesting to be a part of this buzz. Do you really think that from a usability experience for a book, this is important to incorporate?
Well, crypto for us it's a competitive advantage, obviously, but we don't believe that being just crypto is enough to compete on the market. No doubts about that. And there are like 3 major use cases for crypto, really. First one is there is a crypto community, crypto-savvy guys who sit on all these tokens, not knowing what to do with them, and they're kind of gamblers because that's what they do with crypto, really. So they need to have a product to be able to bet on esports and gamble in casino with crypto that they have. So that's use case number 1. Use case number 2 is like there are plenty of markets like Latin America or Asia where like it's perfectly legal to gamble, but there are plenty of issues with people being able to use traditional payment methods, right? And this is where crypto can help, right? And the third one is on-site engagement, because really what crypto does is it reduces the cost of offsets that you need to pay, because you can engage people with crypto, which they can then sell for fiat on exchanges and so on, and you kind of your own central bank. which makes things much more efficient for business. So that's 3 use cases how we see it for crypto.
For me, I think betting in general is a leisure activity. It's an entertainment industry fundamentally, and so what that means is, like, convenience is important. It doesn't matter if you're talking online or even on the high street. There's a reason why you have so many bookies, like one around the corner, just to allow it to be that much easier for your customer to find you and transact. I see a huge use case on the payment, effectively as a payment method for like numerous countries which don't have the infrastructure, or payment providers don't work with them, blah blah blah. And so by not having crypto, I think you fundamentally won't have access to a big chunk of the market who can only transact using these methods. But I don't think it's not a make or break thing for a business. I think you can run a business kind of ignoring it for now. Who knows, maybe there's going to be a revolution in the next few years. But
I mean, from my end, I really, personally, I really love crypto. I've been mining since 2012. I'm hodling, blah, 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 having, different token. I still feel like there is some huge technical barrier, in terms of the settlement, of the payment, the time for the block, to sort of, validate, and the payment to be safe, We also, in terms of our background, are, as I said earlier on, real money gaming people. So, we all work for casino and sports betting industries. I was discussing earlier on, some experiences in specific countries like Sweden, where we feel personally, it's not that we don't believe in crypto, and we just feel like, some more specialists, might be able to have a different approach and offer more value. But for us, we believe that as today, there are some fantastic frictionless payment solution in specific market, being Bank ID in Sweden, a solution similar to that, on-bill billing with operators, things like that. So we feel like our role as real money gaming company with our background is more to sort of drive this and try to come up with a new experience that will be frictionless for not only the deposit and withdrawal, but also for things like KYC, which I'm not really sure Bitcoin or crypto is adding a lot of value at the moment in terms of facilitating KYC. So that's how we look at it.
Okay, that's interesting. Maybe a brief follow-up on this, while we're on creating payment modalities to have a bigger audience, be prospective customers. How do you feel about skins and the role skins have played? Because there's been a lot of regulation changes around it recently, and do you feel like it's still important for customers to be able to use skins as a method of transacting with gambling operators, or would you, despite the recent trends which are kind of going a bit against crypto, against skins, you would still be interested to incorporate them into your business model?
Yeah, first of all, I think that, or we believe that skins gambling will keep on going down, because publishers are against it, regulators are against it. So, for us, it's given. Then the question is what to do with skins, because people still like skins or in-game items, they trade them and so on. So our idea is twofold. First, we will not accept skins as a deposit method, because I mean that's against where the world is moving towards, but we will definitely reward people with skins as part of our engagement. And also we are looking to come up with B2B solution for those skin gambling operators, like white label, who can come up from the shadows basically and move their their audiences towards something which is safe, secure, regulated, and so on.
Yeah, the Eilers and Krajcik report states that a predominant share of skin gamblers will eventually transition to traditional regulated offerings.
Not all of them. I mean, there will still be niches.
There will be
and people
share,
kind of playing and and pool betting for skins and so on, like in chats and so on. But that's not the industry basically. That's something in the shadows, like what you can find here and there. But that's not. At least it's our opinion. Yeah.
I think whether or not it's an industry or like where it's very clear where the legal stance is on skin betting. It's illegal. Or at least is as good as real money betting. But I think the behavior is something that you can't ignore. I think it was one of the big things that, motivated me to go and start this business, is there was a demand for a betting product that was seen as real money to most of the customers, that wasn't being served or serviced by your traditional operators. I know, at least from all of our customers, a vast majority of them have never bet before, except for on skin betting sites. They are all above 18. We're a UK-regulated real money betting operator, but that, to me, represents a different pond of customers that we are fishing in. And so, and the big benefit, again, to reiterate, is we don't accept them as a deposit method. Mainly because the KYC, basically the benefit to being able to accept skins is almost offset by the enhanced KYC that you need to go through to get these guys onto the platform. So it's kind of just a pain in the arse. But the benefit is there are these goods, digital goods that you can gift to your customers that have value outside of like real cash, and that presents a very good opportunity for gamification. So like we don't have a cryptocurrency that we are in control of, that we can just inflate and deflate as we like, but we do have skins that are strangely valued that we can hand out.
So you're both saying for marketing play, skin's certainly important because it's something people care about, identify with.
Yeah.
But despite the legal challenges around it, you say what we saw in the prominence of skin gambling is really a big point, and I think many people in the room will be interested in how can this billion-dollar liquidity, how can I translate this potential to leverage my business model? So you're right, all the studies also suggest that these users, they have not been exposed to any normal betting or fixed odds betting before. I know you do a tote system as well, and how you run your product. But if you would want to translate them to, maybe this one for you, Fabian, if you want to translate them to a regulated traditional offering of fixed odds betting, how do you capture that potential? How do you educate the customers? Besides the KYC-related challenges, but how do you educate them to a normal betting product?
Well, we haven't really gone to market with anything, and I can really relay your comments with regards to skin gambling being illegal, and despite some attempts by the regulators in some area like Isle of Man to regularize it, it's still for us a sort of touchy subject and a bit of a dangerous area, or at least it has some risk. With regards to educating the customer, we haven't found, to be honest with you, we don't have the answer yet. What is very interesting, I think, is what the behavior of the customer happening around things like Fortnite with, it's not really skins anymore, it's dances, but there is definitely items, digital items that have value. I do feel like there is a responsibility pretty much for the publisher to also do a bit more with regards to not only just throwing these high-value items via loot boxes and so on, but also work with companies that have years of experience in betting and real money gaming and gambling, so they can make sure that there is a value outside of just offering that as a reward to their players, because I feel like it's a little bit sometimes even abusing their own customers, because I'm sitting on a lot of CS:GO old weapons and things like that, and I'm not really sure what to do with them. So I don't really have the answer to your question in a long-winded way.
I think you tapped on an interesting point there, and I'll use it as a crossover. You mentioned publishers, so we are like I think I also mentioned this yesterday. So we are in an ecosystem where we have an IP holder in the sports entire ecosystem, being in kind of a driver's seat when it comes to decision making, and especially in regards to betting, we saw a few changes in policy by some publishers, becoming more active in restricting this. So I know, Nasim, you have a lot of experience in this, and this is part of your role at DreamHack, really to navigate through the challenges you have with obviously serving a publisher as your partner, whose franchises you bring to the market through your events, but also obviously wanting to have successful relationships and great activations with betting operators who bring in a lot of money, and you bring in engaged audiences. So how do you navigate between this? What has happened recently? What are the trends?
When it comes to the publishers, to be able to provide these tournaments, we of course need to adapt to the regulations that they have. And unfortunately, they have a bad experience from betting, and that has its history through skins betting. And I think there needs to be common efforts made from both us as an organizer, but also from the betting companies to actually convince the publishers that what the offerings out there is actually regulated and legit, and it can bring a lot of values to not only the esports community, but also to the publishers' IPs for the future. For us, a betting sponsor is, of course, of interest, because that gives us the opportunity to create even bigger and better tournaments. But we are in the ecosystem very centered. We need to have a good relationship with a lot of people, partners, publishers, teams, players, and most of all, the fans. So it's hard to like have this solution, but we hope that with common efforts, we could actually try to change the view the publishers has on betting.
Okay, and I mean, DreamHack is offering or is operating tournaments across a quite wide array of esports titles across different publishers behind them. So, are there specific games where you are able to do something in betting? Are there some where it's kind of off the table to do something?
The only game that we are able to actually provide in-stream betting promotion is Counter-Strike, which is owned by Valve. That also does Dota 2, for example. In Dota 2, there is a restriction against betting within our tournaments, so we can't do anything there. But they also own CS:GO, and they have a totally different approach when it comes to betting there. So that's actually the only game where we can bring in a betting partner and give them the live odds in stream on the tournaments that goes global, and do a lot of brand activations. But what we want to do is, or what I want to try to achieve is to have the betting companies to actually see outside only the in-game exposure and the live odds exposure in our streams, because esports is the only sport where you can have that, and that spoils the betting companies quite much, and try to see outside just the in-stream exposure and build your brand around esport and gaming as a whole community.
So you refer to your events where you don't only do esports, you also do gaming festivals?
Yeah, because the esports audience is very broad, and hearing the guys talking about what products do we want to offer the audience, you actually need to learn who is the traditional esports fan. The guy that likes to watch CS doesn't like to watch League of Legends. He might enjoy PUBG. He might actually play Fortnite. How can we attract that person? With DreamHack, we reach the big audience that enjoys both esports but also likes to game. And we have tons of opportunities and solutions that we can bring for a betting company.
I'd have a follow-up on the point you made in regards to the publisher. So leading up until this year, it was understandable that a US-based billion-dollar company serving a lot of minors has their reservation to engage with betting in any capacity because they're afraid of a reputational damage, potentially. And probably the business case to do so at the moment doesn't add up with the risk that they perceive.
Yep.
But ultimately, the motivations for them, which I can understand, they are driven by unregulated markets usually. So actually blocking out regulated stakeholders is usually leveraging the kind of risk that they wanted to keep away from their franchises in the first place. Would you agree that in a post-PASPA repeal time era we're now living in, you think this might change? You think we have now a better shot of educating them and, as you said, between tournament organizers who bring experience in successfully activating betting in the regulated space and operators who have an integrity-driven approach? Do you think there's now a time where you can start a conversation?
With publishers, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a very interesting subject, really, because it depends on how publishers treat esports, because for some it's revenue stream. And then they have all the vested interest to make sure that there is the way to monetize players, to make it stickier, and so on and so forth. For some, it's marketing effort. And that's kind of different story and different ball game. And they have less interest to do so. And that's what kind of makes it so much different and harder than traditional sports to work with. But I agree with you that there is like a lot of education and cleaning, basically, of the field from all this past, like wishy-washy skin betting, no license type of operations, which of course painted betting industry not in like white colors for the industry. And that's pretty much what we are trying to do. We got like Isle of Man license, which is like one of the strictest, and so on and so forth. But this is the process. And I think that on this stage, our aim is to partner with one of the key event organizers to start with and to show to the publishers that, okay, so it can be done in a responsible way, it can be done in a way which does not kind of undermine the experience, but spice up an experience, making it more interesting, and so on and so forth. That's what our objective. I don't think that you can kind of knock the door of Valve saying, okay, guys, let's discuss. I mean, why?
I think just because esports is digital and online, you can't expect that you can have the in-stream odds. You have to also look at traditional sports. Are you able to provide your live odds in the actual football game? You can't. Esports, the publisher side, you have to understand how they operate and where they come from. Also, the audience, the target group, because many of these fans that watch esports today, they have grown up playing those games themselves, and that they did when they were minors. So how has the esport audience actually developed? And therefore, it's quite natural for the publishers that they don't want to be associated with betting.
Yeah.
And it's the same with a lot of other sports. So I think you should focus on trying to find other commercial values and brand values around the actual game itself.
So you're saying it's key to diversify a bit your portfolio, not
Absolutely.
just in the betting corner, but you want to service the audiences in a broader way.
Absolutely. There's tons of ways to actually activate your audience.
To comment on that, I really see great value, but also great responsibility for the betting operator in esports to first differentiate ourselves from the generalists, because for me that's how we build trust from the esports audience. And for example, there is one area that we would like to look into more and more, is how do we drive physical foot traffic to physical places that are related to esports. Some of you might be in the street with your friend on the night of a big esports event, going to an esports bar. We do feel like maybe the circle is not, the loop is not completely closed when it comes to offering maybe a sort of curated experience, being in the form of pool betting, being in the form of group betting and betting maybe against the house, or simply just driving people to an esports bar or to an esports event, and being able to make them feel like the esports betting company are not only offering betting, but we are already part of the community, and we are ready to have an exchange where it's not just us taking money on top of the layer of all the efforts of the publisher. And final comment is I definitely understand the publishers, why they're reticent. In terms of the use of copyrighted material, there is already a sort of good understanding, and we feel like as long as we don't abuse their property, which are their property and their livelihood, we feel like we already have a good relation. So now we need to prove, as you said, that to the publisher that we can not only offer great experience on betting, but also what can we do outside of that, merchandising, branding, driving foot traffic.
Yeah, I got a cue that we have a few minutes left, so I'm gonna try to tap into at least one of the questions from the audience at the stage. Do you feel that as betting platforms, where do you think your responsibility is ensuring that the services that you provide don't infringe on the integrity of the matches that are being played? Or do you think the responsibility lies more with the league or the tournament organizer to ensure that?
Good. I think for me, it's very obvious that the betting providers need to be a part, or need to assume some of the burden for ensuring integrity, not only because, essentially, without the betting providers, the integrity, there would still, let's be clear, there will still be integrity issues of cheating, etc. Just because of the nature of these games, where a vast majority of these professional players' incomes are still coming from, prize pool winnings. So there is an incentive to cheat regardless, but this is definitely magnified, especially when it comes to match fixing, etc., by the betting providers. And fundamentally, it's very difficult to spot dodgy behavior without seeing the flow, the betting flow on one side. What could be a very simple mistake changes very different, changes significantly when looked through the lens of a betting provider who just sees a huge order placed on a fairly innocuous event suddenly. So for me, obviously, the betting provider needs to assume a significant role. I don't know if it's 50-50, 60-40, but it's a big role.
From our end, we feel like there is a need for a buffer between the operator and the organizers, being the leagues or being the publishers. We believe that organizations like the ESIC can help sort of create a framework for us to operate under, so we reassure in terms of integrity and in terms of match fixing. But however, we believe that we have technology partner, we're responsible for bringing the feeds, responsible for delivering the odds, and talking to some of them, we feel like there is some really exciting stuff coming in the industry on how we can make sure at scale that we can get our partner to flag something for us, so we can make the best decision when it comes to offering or not offering it to the end users.
Well, I do agree that it should be an industry effort, but the betting provider should take part of responsibility for that, no doubt. That's why this ESIC is kind of thing that hopefully will help industry to grow and to define the rules of engagement for everyone.
Okay, then I'll take this as a closing comment, very positive feedback, and close the session. Thank you for your attention and thank you for the participation.
Thank you.
Thanks to the speakers.
Thank you, everyone.